Graham Stephan continues to use clickbait to confuse people about the housing market. CEO of a major flat fee brokerage resigns after major layoffs, and what listing agents can do to get their listings sold in today's shifting real estate market. That and more coming up. This is the Real Estate Daily Show. So let's start off with my man, Graham Stephan. So if you guys are not familiar with Graham, let me share my screen. I want to show you guys. He's got a massive, massive YouTube channel. He's got about a little over 4 million subscribers. And as of late, for whatever reason, listen, I am a big Graham Stephan fan. However, I don't love some of the clickbaity titles that he's been coming up with lately. So look at the screen right now, and I'll show you some of these. And we're going to talk about this video in particular. Home prices are falling 50%. The worst economic collapse is coming. Really, the worst economic collapse. Worse than the Great Depression, worse than the Great Recession of 2008, I guess, based on Graham Stephan. The next Great Depression, how to prepare. You see, I'm just not a big fan of these because I think that it's spreading unnecessary fear. And Graham, you have a massive, massive YouTube channel with millions of people watching your videos every day. I think he's really bordering what someone might call misinformation, specifically in this video where he talks about home prices are falling 50%. Let me share my screen and you guys be the judge.
What's up, you guys? It's Graham here, and it's official. After a decade of unstoppable growth, the housing market is beginning to fall. A new report from Redfin just found that home buyers are now backing out of deals at the fastest pace since the start of the pandemic. Prices are decelerating at the quickest pace in history, and several markets have already fallen nearly 50% from their peak.
All right, so here's the deal. All right, so he comes out with this video, I think it was, October 7th, talking about home prices are falling 50%. He shows some graphs from some articles, one in particular. And I said to myself, okay, Graham, home prices haven't fallen 50%. They have started to level off. They've started to decline in some markets, nowhere near 50%. And so I said, okay, let me share with the audience. Let me give the audience some context around one of the articles Graham just showed in this video. So let me share my screen. I'm going to show you the article that Graham is showing in this video where he talks about, well, in his words, home prices falling 50%. He forgot to leave out a couple little details. And this is where I get a little concerned when someone with a YouTube channel of 4 million people sharing misinformation. So if I scroll down here, I'll show you where Mr. Stephan got this article from. And you can see he had a lot of this blurred out, all right? And he's talking about a report that shows seasonality. Home price changes in seasonality. Now, if that wasn't enough, I want to read this to you guys, and you can probably see my screen here too. And I will blow it up just so you can even see it even better. All right, so I'll highlight this. The data used in this analysis is from Redfin to determine the locations with the biggest seasonal changes in home prices. Researchers at Construction Coverage calculated the percentage change in median home sales price, listen closely, between the most expensive month and the least expensive month in each location, averaged over a 5-year period of time between 2015 and 2019. This report is not even referencing home prices right now in 2022, so much so at the bottom of the graph, if you see, let's see if I can show that to you better. Median home sales price seasonal change, 2015 to 2019. So this is where I get very, very concerned and about these large YouTubers with these very, very clickbaity titles. I get it. You got my attention, Graham. I clicked on the video. I said, wait a minute, is there something I don't know about? Because I report on this every single day. It's what I do as a real estate broker, as a real estate coach. I stay on the real estate market every single day. And so when he came out with that video, home prices dropping 50%, he shows the graph down 50%. I'm saying to myself, what in the world? Is it that bad? And this is, I am in the industry. Well, when we do a little research and we look up the content that's being used and find out it doesn't even have anything to do with home prices here in October 2022, it's just something to consider. So now, with that being said, to be fair, I just made my official September housing market update video with the CEO of National Mortgage Funding here on the show, on the channel, just a day or so ago. And we did talk about the likelihood that home prices will go through what Jerome Powell at the Fed talked about, a housing market correction. And that is something that I do believe is very, very likely. So much so, I'll share my screen. Fortune just came out with a great article yesterday. The same day, Graham Stephan came out with his video talking about home prices declining 50% in some markets, which we just talked about is not the case. I want to talk about this article from Fortune, which I highly, highly agree with. So it says that the Fed admits a sharp home price decline is possible. I agree. Jerome Powell at the last Fed meeting came on stage and talked about this at great lengths. Fed Chair Jerome Powell was asked at the FOMC press conference in September to clarify what he meant when he said a few months earlier that the housing market could reset. His response: we've entered into a difficult housing correction that we will see in the U.S. housing market transition to more of a balanced market for buyers and sellers, which I agree with. However, Powell still hasn't addressed the elephant in the room. Will home prices fall? So fast forward to this week, and we finally got a better understanding of the central bank's view on home prices. On Thursday, Fed Governor Christopher Waller told an audience at the University of Kentucky that it's possible we could see a material drop in U.S. home prices. While this housing market correction could be fairly mild, which I agree, I cannot dismiss the possibility of a much larger drop in demand, which I agree, because of mortgage rates and house prices before the market normalizes. So I'm just going to scroll down to a part in the article that talks about what really is happening with some declines in house prices. Okay, so the Fed acknowledged that home prices could fall, and in many markets they already have started. They've already started to do so. So 98 markets have seen home values fall from their 2022 peaks. In 11 markets, there was the Burns Home Value Index that already dropped by more than 5%, not 50%, but 5%. And so the point here is this. When we look at what is happening with the housing market, specifically around prices looking to drop, yes, we are most likely going to go through a correction in the marketplace. Meaning, and let me give you context. I gave great context to this point in the housing market update that I did on the channel just a day or so ago. But we are going to go through a correction. What happened over the past 20 months as a result of the pandemic, we've seen some real estate markets go up 20, 25, 30, 35% in value. What is likely is that at least half of those gains will probably disappear. So let me show you a report from Redfin. And they have got great data. They come out with it every single month. So if you look at my screen right now, you can see that the peak hit May 2022, where home prices, the average was 430,000. They've already started to come down, and as of last month, came down to about 407,000, which I talked about in my housing market video. Now, if you rewind the clocks back to pre-pandemic, so if we go back to January 2020, we say, okay, cool, let's give this some context, right? So March, let's go to January. January 2020, average home price just under 290,000. Now, if we see a correction in the marketplace of 10 or 20% from where we are today, and the average home price is, call it 400,000 or thereabouts, 10% would mean that house would be $40,000 less, right? So that house then becomes worth $340,000. Well, if that doubles and they go down 80,000, now it's worth 320,000. The key thing here is this. If we look at a 20% correction, which is, I think, maybe higher than what most experts are believe that will happen, including myself, I think we probably will see a 10 or 15% correction. But even if we have a 20% correction, we're going to see home prices that are still greater than those that we saw back in January 2020 when, oh, by the way, nobody was complaining about home values at that point in time. Nobody was complaining about the real estate market at that time. No, things were actually quite good. And so what's happening here is this. The housing market is simply going through what Jerome Powell called a correction. I'm calling it normalizing. It's just going back to a normal market where the number of buyers, the number of sellers, the number of those two things are equal. Inventory increases, home prices come back down to normal levels, which will be, once we hit a new baseline, still greater than what we saw pre-pandemic. And what most people believe is that is exactly what's going to happen. So giving you context, whether you're a real estate professional, homeowner, understanding the context around the market correction, not a market crash, not Graham Stephan's 50% home value decline, nothing like that. Okay, we're just going back to a normal market. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's not spread misinformation. Let's not get everybody all confused, all nervous for no reason. So the next thing I want to talk about is a CEO of a flat fee brokerage resigned last week. And the interesting thing is this, and I've said this for years and years and years. As the real estate market goes up and down, as the real estate market goes up, and when I mean up, I'm talking about home prices, we get more into a seller's market, you start to see different business models appear. You start to see a lot more iBuyers. You start to see a lot more flat fee brokerages start and get funded from venture capitalists. And when the market normalizes or shifts in any certain way or goes through a correction like we're seeing now, a lot of these companies struggle. You see it all the time. Companies like Compass, and this is another one. So what happened here is CEO of a company called Homey just resigned on Friday. And so let me read to you this article from Real Trends. So Johnny Hanna was the CEO of a Utah-based flat fee real estate brokerage. He resigned on Friday, citing high interest rates and instability in the market. A week prior to his resignation, Homey, which is the brokerage, who specializes in the buy-side agent, laid off 40 workers, according to the Salt Lake Tribune. The company's co-founder and president, Mike Peregrina, assumes the role of the CEO. Hanna will remain in his position as chairman. So what's interesting is the article goes on to say that the company is struggling a bit as the real estate market shifts, which happens all the time. The reason I bring this up is this. I coach a lot of real estate agents, and the conversations that we had over the past 3 or 4 or 5 years is, well, Brandon, how do I compete with a lot of these discount brokerages or a lot of these flat fee brokerages? To which I respond all the time with, listen, the reality is, first off, these models that come and go all the time, only a small percentage of the marketplace will it impact, number one. Number two, they come and go. As the market gets hot, you start to see everybody get their real estate license. You see this quick cash grab. You see all these companies, all these people looking to get into the real estate business, all these investors looking to get into the space while it's hot to make a quick buck. And then once we go through what we're going through right now, which is a real estate market shift, all those models tend to struggle a bit. And that is simply what we're seeing right now. And so it'll be interesting to see how many more companies like this or non-traditional real estate brokerages may struggle as this market continues to shift. And we'll just have to keep an eye on that. Now, the third thing I want to talk to you guys about in today's episode is what is it that listing agents, which is primarily the audience in which I serve, that I coach, that I train, what can we do as the real estate market shifts right now and more of your listings are sitting on the market for a longer period of time? It's like chasing the ball down the hill, right? And if you just close your eyes for a second and picture that for a minute, it's exactly what is happening right now. As you're listing property, call it at X price, and the market continues to go down, it's like that ball rolling down the hill. As you try to go and catch the ball's already further down the hill. And what ends up happening is you're seeing a large portion of listings come off the market, whether they be expired or not sell, or you're seeing a large portion of these listings having to reduce their prices more so than we've ever seen in a long, long time. So I've got a couple bullets that I think will be very, very helpful if you are a real estate agent and you're a listing agent primarily, and you may have listings right now that aren't selling, that are causing you anxiety because you want to serve your sellers at the highest level, which should be the goal. Here are some things that we could do. Number one, we need to view every single active listing that comes into the marketplace. So every active listing that our listing would compete with needs to not only, I'm not talking about viewing it online. I'm not talking about any of that, although I think that is the first step, setting yourself up in the MLS in a way where you get notified of every new listing certainly is a start. What I mean is this. What I mean is as new listings come into the marketplace, that not only we notify the seller, but we actually go and show those properties to the seller. It's one thing to use our words and to tell the seller, hey, listen, another property just hit the market that we're going to compete with. It's arguably that maybe they have some more features and benefits that we don't, and they have a lower price. So let's go check it out. Let's go look at that property, show the seller the property, schedule a showing, and go and see the property. Now, if the seller can't make it, do an agent preview. Schedule an agent preview, go and look at the home. So you have your finger on the pulse. You know exactly what is happening. As the expert, which the sellers need you to be in this market, let's go and view every single listing. Next, this is something that has helped me for years and years and years. In addition to having your for sale sign in the front yard, with your pretty little realtor picture, in addition to that sign, let's put a second sign in the front yard that says 24/7 open house, call for times. And there's a phone number on that sign. What happens is this is a great strategy to get people that are driving by the home to take action, because it's one thing for somebody to think about, okay, it's a headache maybe to schedule a showing or to go through all that. But an open house, the barrier to entry may appear to be lower, and so they call the sign 24/7 open house. What does that actually mean? It just means that you're showing the property to any buyer that might come to you direct. But I'm telling you, when we put the second sign in the yard, our sign calls went up dramatically. So don't judge it. try it and see if it helps. Number 3, what we want to do is we want to look at the properties that are coming into the marketplace and going under contract within the same time frame that we listed our home. This gives you such great data to go from, because what happened is when you were hitting the market and another home hit the market in that same period of time, well, it's likely that the buyers took your listing into consideration, took your client's home into consideration during that period of time, that the buyer says, nope, I'm going to pass on that listing and I'm going to go and purchase this other home. So that property that hit the market, got an accepted offer, now is pending in the same time frame that you hit your listing hit the market, will give you great information about what buyers want and what buyers don't want. Next, another massive tactic here for you. When you have an active listing, you can go into your MLS and do what is called a reverse prospecting lookup. This is so powerful. I'm not specifically suggesting that you will hit a button and magically find a buyer for your listing. However, I will tell you this. What that reverse prospecting list will give you, however, is a list of potential buyers in the marketplace, the number of buyers in the marketplace, and specifically how many of those buyers hearted your listing in the MLS, saved your listing in the MLS as a favorite. And so now if there's 50 or 60 buyers that your listing is showing up in their active listing portal as a potential home for them to go and look at, you could say of the 50, wow, there's 17 that actually hearted my listing. Now, potentially, let me pick up the phone. Let me call the buyer's agent that has a client who hearted my listing as one of their favorites. Let me go and have a voice-to-voice conversation and see if I can drum up some more activity on my listing. Next, let's make sure this might be, you might say this is an obvious one, but I'm telling you, I looked at this just 2 weeks ago and made a huge difference, that all the MLS data that you have inside your listing is accurate. I'll give you a quick story. So I was working with one of the agents that I coach. She had a listing that was a lakefront property, okay? Lakefront property is a true lakefront property. It's very different than that of a home with lake access. And if you've been in the business for any length of time, you understand exactly what I mean. She had the property. It was listed, I believe, at 1.1 or 1.2 million at the time. It was listed as lake access. And for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, we were looking at it saying, why aren't we getting showings? Why aren't we getting the activity that the other lakefront homes are getting in the area that we did with our CMA? And I said, hey, share your screen with me. Let me look at something really quick. And lo and behold, in the MLS, she had it as lake access, not lakefront. We click the button, lakefront. That property then re-syndicated to all of the active buyers looking for lakefront homes. It wasn't but 2 days later, she got 2 offers on the property, got the property sold. So just make sure that everything you have in the MLS, all the buttons are clicked correctly. You might think they are. So did this agent. We made one change, got the property sold for her client. All right, next. What we want to do for the last 4 or 5 years, it's been very common that, and maybe you have found yourself in this same situation, calling listing agents as the buyer agent to have a conversation to give your buyer the greatest likelihood to get their offers accepted. You would say things to the listing agent such as, hey, what's important to the seller? I know obviously price is important. Is there anything else that you think the seller really cares about that I can relay to my buyer? You were making those phone calls all the time, right? Well, we need to do the exact opposite of that now. Now what we have to do is the listing agent is now call the buyer's agent that shows interest in the home or shows the property. We need to invert that conversation. So what does that mean? That means that we have to call the buyer's agent and simply have a conversation and say, hey, what is important to your buyer? Obviously, I know price is important, and certainly if we can work that out, outside of price, you just showed the property. What else is important to your buyer that now I can relate to the seller to see if we can put together a deal? It takes more than you just putting the property in the MLS, sitting back and hoping that it sells. Try that out. I think you're going to find great opportunities for yourself. And then the next tip I'm going to give you is daily updates with your sellers. We need to stay ahead of what I call the communication burden. So sellers are very anxious right now. When their mindset and all they've heard in the media for the past couple of years is sellers market this, multiple offers that, house is selling on the first day with, a bidding war, and now they're sitting on the market week after week, month after month with no offers. That causes great stress, great anxiety. So as a listing agent, rather than even doing a weekly update, which is great, even better, let's do a daily update. Yes, daily. Because if we can stay ahead of that communication burden, it helps to lower the anxiety of our sellers. So we need to let the sellers know, hey, listen, here's what's going on, giving you a quick update. Here's what I'm doing today to make sure that we can get our property in front of any potential buyer so that the seller can rest and know that they have an agent that is proactive. They have an agent that is doing their job. So that is the daily show for today. I hope that you got great value from it. If you, hopefully you like this style of content, I'm going to try, and my goal at this point is to do these every single day for you, to bring you what is happening with the housing market, what is happening with the real estate industry, and then tips, strategies for you as a real estate agent to grow a successful listing-based business. So if you got any value, consider subscribing to the channel. There are links underneath this video. If you're open to having a coaching conversation with me, I'd be happy to do so. Just click the link beneath this video. We can have a conversation about potentially working together and discuss if now's the time or not. So we will see you in another video. Appreciate your time and your attention today.